Hello there. So I wanted to do a video of my fully automated furnace that I've built and show everyone, how it works and how it all hangs together. So I'll do this in a kind of series of clips, I think, just showing a few different scenarios and then doing a technical walkthrough of how it's all built. But we'll start off just by showing a demonstration. So first thing we need to do is go and dump some ore. I'll talk through all of this later. There's a lot of stuff going on. It can probably be more efficient, but it's just the way it is. So first things first is I take some iron ore and I drop it into my sorting system here, which is basically holding all of my separate ores. Now over here I have all my controls and statuses. So the status light tells you what's going on. Green means you're ready to go, yellow means it's working, red means something went wrong. And the quantity display down here is the amount of reagents that are going in and consequently the amount of reagents that will come out. The dial on the left selects the type of ore or alloy that we want to build, and the dial on the right selects the quantity. That's in increments of 50 for standard ores, or 100 for an alloy that takes 50 of each. So the increments are done kind of in the minimum you would smelt, basically. And then an activate button in the middle to hit to set it all going. So these are all very small, but I dropped some iron in, so we'll do some iron. So basically I want to set this to a value of 3, because that's for iron. We'll do a run of 2, so that will give us 100 iron out the other end, and we'll hit go. Our light turns yellow. You'll see just quickly running along there was some iron ore, and you'll see it dropping there into the furnace. The furnace should now start to heat up, as it does slowly. We can see around here is orange is our fuel line. There's a volume pump pumping fuel in. And as this heats up, it will eventually get to temperature. And I think it already has done, so it's been opened. So if we come back all the way over here, that's gone green, so we're good to go again. So everything has finished, and we should, once it runs around the chute system, boom, 100 ingots of iron, or 100 grams of an iron ingot. Okay, so that is iron working. Right, next we will do some steel. Okay, so as promised, I'm going to do a run of steel. So steel is number 16. So let's ramp this up to 16. You'll see that our amounts have gone up to 400 because steel runs at 3 iron to 1 coal. So 3 lots of iron, 3 lots of 50 is 150. 1 lot of coal, 50 is 200 in total if we're on a quantity of 1. So we will hit activate. We have gone yellow. We should see things dropping out of the chutes over here. And hopefully, there they go. Oh, the coal's gotten stuck. That's a weird thing that happens. It should run through. There we go. For some reason, that's an oddity with the chute system. It might be because this frame has got a middle. I might need to just cut the frame out. But anyway, this should now heat up. We can go and check that it's heating. Yep, the volume pump is on. To try and make it as fuel efficient as possible, I haven't just got it barreling fuel in. It does the fuel fairly slowly and then keeps hitting to try and get to a temperature. But like I said, I'll explain that a bit more later. So steel's got a slightly more rigorous temperature and pressure requirements. Can't remember what they are off the top of my head, but there we go. We've got the pull. So that means it hit the appropriate temperature and pressure. We've gone green, so we're good to go again, and everything has run. And hopefully, there we go. We have, if we jump that out, 200 grams of steel, completely automated from the touch of a button. Now this will also do ice. If you put ices into the system, it will sort the ice. You hit the button with an ice. Obviously, rather than output something, it will put it into the furnace, melt it all down, and then everything gets pumped out at the end. So if we see at the back here now, this volume pump is on. That's our outgassing volume pump. So while there's pressure in the furnace and the furnace is not active, it will outgas everything into this tank here. And you can see that is going up, and it's got varying amounts of stuff in it because I've been testing. So there's hydrogen and all sorts of stuff that came out of the smelting process. And then eventually that gets pushed into our atmospheric system, or our gas system, which is back there. Again, explain more of that later. So like I say, you can do ices. The problem is that right now the way I've got it set up is that chutes are not in a vacuum. They do have temperature in them. So all of your ice that you put in these chutes will melt during the day. Annoying. So if you wanted to use this for ices, you would have to enclose at least your ice part in some kind of vacuum room. Probably out of direct sunlight, not 100% sure, to make sure that your ices don't melt, and then also enclose all of this as well in a vacuum to make sure that any time it's running through chutes, it's not melting. But it should work. Okay, good. So that's it all working. Let me run you through the technical side. Okay, technical walkthrough. So, fairly complicated, as you can see. The first thing is the sorting system. There's actually there's no logic involved in this. It's just a whole bunch of sorters. But basically, if I drop an ore in the chute at the start here, it will run through a series of sorters, and you can see the doors opening and closing. And iron runs out somewhere over there. So we've basically got a whole bunch of sorters. I can't remember how many. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 sorters that basically allow you to put any ore you want in here, and it will effectively hold them in hoppers. So each one of these, and if I just grab a tool so that it will give me the name, each one of these is named. So you can see this chute outlet here is water. That's volatiles, oxide, uranium, coal, silver, etc., etc. And I've got a big wiggly tube that is basically holding a whole bunch of ores like a hopper. The old one's got the window in it, so you can see, like, for instance, my copper here is held, and there'll be more around there. Obviously, an issue with this whole system is you can't tell how much ore you've got. What you could do is, rather than have a wiggly system like I've done here, you could just do one big long window chute, and that would let you count however much ore you wanted. Also, if you really want to be storing lots and lots of ore, you will need long chutes. I've only done fairly short ones, but you can make them as long as you want. Also, along the middle here are a set of stackers, each of them set to 50. So the idea there is that the only thing that is going into our storage hopper is a stack of 50. That means that when we're working with things, we're guaranteed that out the end here we'll always drop a stack of 50. So it means we're not having to worry about partial stacks and weird numbers of things coming out. So you can keep dropping stuff into the inlet, and it will just queue up, and it will always stack it up into a nice set of 50. If you drop something that's not ore in, then it will get bumped out the end as a non-ore, which is effectively the same as our outlet for our ingots. The logic runs up here, so actually only 5 of these are necessary to make it work. The 6th one is it runs all the statuses and the numbers. So I've got the main one here, which is the ore selection control. So what that one is doing is it's basically taking in the values that we've chosen on our type and our quantity. It's deciding based on the type, if it's an alloy or if it's a regular ore. If it's an alloy, then it multiplies numbers differently to make sure that it's selecting the right types and the right ores to drop out, and it pushes all of that into a couple of memories around here. This slot reader you don't need to worry about, that's not in use. In fact, let's turn it off. So you can see we've got a type temperature memory here and a quantity pressure memory here. So they have dual uses. To start with, they run as type, and then they move on to temperature and pressure to control the furnace. So the type goes in, the pressure goes in, and then we have these 3 chute control logics up here. So each of these is controlling 4 of the outlets, basically. So you can see it takes in the type, the quantity, and then it does copper, gold, iron and lead, and each of these does 3. So what these are waiting for is they're basically looking at the values that are on these memory, and if there is a quantity above 0 and a type of between 1 and 16, then it will, 1 and 12, because they're the OR numbers, then it will recognize that and it will say, right, what I'll do is I've been asked for a quantity of 4 iron, so we'll go to the iron chute, wherever that is, this one I think, and I will open it and close it, and then I'll deduct the quantity by 1, and then I'll open it and I'll close it, and I'll deduct the quantity, and I'll keep doing that. I'll keep dropping ores until the quantity hits 0. Now if this is an alloy, the main logic chip up here will then move on to the next ore that's required for that alloy. So if it was steel, it would do 3 iron, and then it would pop the values off the stack for the next one, which would be the coal, and it will then say, right, I'll do the same thing. So it'll change the type here to coal, and it'll change the quantity to 1, or however many it needs, and then it will drop the coal. Then once this logic detects that it's gone through all of the things it needs to do, it then sets the temperature, the maximum temperature and pressure required to smelt whatever it's smelting, and sets that on the memory. This is where the furnace heat control kicks in. So if the furnace heat control detects a type of above, I think it's 100, basically anything that's going to be out of the range of a normal ore type, it then knows that, okay, we're talking heat now, so I need to start doing something. So the furnace control will then say, right, well, I've got a maximum temperature, I've got a maximum pressure, so I need to start trying to regulate this furnace and get it up to speed. So it will turn on the volume pump and start pumping in fuel, and then hitting the activate button to spark it up, and it will keep doing that until the temperature and the pressure, keeping the temperature and pressure as close as it can to the maximum. If it goes over the maximum, then it will over the maximum temperature, then it will just stop the fuel and let it cool down. If it goes over the maximum pressure, then it will activate the outgassing volume pump at the back here, and it will pump some gas out to lower the pressure, and it'll just keep doing that as long as it needs to. The main control logic here will then be monitoring the temperature and the pressure, and as long as it's within the window of the required temperature and pressure for whatever it is you're smelting, it will then check if the number of reagents in the furnace is the correct number, what we're expecting. So for instance, if you're doing steel and you're doing 1 run of steel, it will make sure that there's a 200 set of reagents in there, and then it will pull the open button, and that will pop our ingot out the other end. The popped ingot that comes out will run down this chute and back into our sorting system, and because it's not an ore, it comes out of the sorting system and drops at our feet. The middle one here is just the system lighting control, or the system status control, so that is just controlling the status here. The LED to tell us that it's yellow if it's ongoing, red if something fails, and it also controls the quantity here. It basically just takes the value from the type, multiplies it by the appropriate quantity value, and the number of reagents to make that particular item. Now, like I've mentioned, error checking. So if this goes red, it does fail. So there is an amount of error checking in. I may be able to show you this. We'll see if this works. So let's say we want silicon, and I'll rack this up to 10. So what this will do is, when I hit go now, it will try to drop out 10 amounts of silicon. I'm pretty sure I don't have 10 lots of silicon in there. So if the silicon chute is still trying to drop, but it detects there's nothing in its slot, then it will send a message back via the memory by setting this to -1, the type to -1, to say, no, I didn't have enough to do what you want to do. And the ore will be held here at this chute outlet here, so it won't actually make it into the furnace because the ore is being held and the furnace doesn't start to heat. So when the error then goes, the furnace will be checked to make sure that it's at a low enough temperature that it's not going to start smelting things or turning things into reagents or anything like that. The furnace will be opened, and then this chute will be opened and all the ores will be dropped through. They should then run straight through the furnace and back into the system. So we'll see if that will work. So if I hit activate, we'll see that it's going. We should see silicon dropping out. Well, there's 2. Okay, so now it's gone red. So we know that something's gone wrong. We can see the silicon dropping in, and hopefully, there they go. So you see the ores are now coming back round, and they just get passed back into the sorting system. So the system has corrected itself. It's gone back to green. It failed in what it wanted to do, but we've not lost any ores. The ores are back in the system, and we can just restart from there. Now you'll see there's a few logic units over here. They're not really doing anything particularly startling. All they're doing is my outgassing of my waste storage into my gas system, which is over here. So if I bring out this, you'll see that we're at a temperature of 236 degrees. All this is doing over here is saying that if I've got a temperature in that tank of less than 303 Kelvin, which is about 30 degrees, then turn on this volume pump. So when this is cooled down enough, that's just automatically outgassing into my main gas storage, mainly because I don't want really, really hot gases suddenly getting pumped into my main gas storage. There's also a couple of logic readers or logic units around here, a logic reader and a logic writer. What this is doing is basically copying the lock on the furnace. So to make sure that the ores don't run through unless they have to, I have this this furnace queue. Let me get a tool out so we can read the name. I have this furnace queue outlet here, but I need it to be locked when the furnace is locked, and I need it to open when the furnace is open, because there's no way to stop ores going into a furnace other than having, or at least that I've found, other than having some kind of thing in the way. So all this does is, because I don't have enough items left on my logic circuits over there to add yet another thing. I've only got the furnace. I'll show you. The main logic unit here is got all of its 6 inputs used up. So we've got the activate button, the 2 memories, the 2 dials, and the furnace itself. So I haven't got anywhere on there that can control this. So what I do is I set the lock variable on the furnace, and then all this does is it copies it onto the outlet. So it basically means if I control the furnace lock, I'm also controlling the outlet lock, which is pretty handy. Just means I can, when I unlock the furnace, it also unlocks this outlet and pushes everything through, which is nice. So I think that is everything. Obviously we have a computer over here for setting up all of the sorters, because that's just the easiest way to set up all the sorters. I had this logic reader here just for testing a few things, and it was also a batch writer to set up all of the stackers, because that was just the easiest way to set up the stackers. This all runs on low power circuit, as you can see, so it doesn't go anywhere near over the 5,000 watts, the 5 kilowatts. And I think that is everything. So I'm sure there are things on this that are inefficient, that I've done wrong, or that could be better. The biggest issue I had was that this main logic circuit here is maxed out. It's got 128 lines of code in it. That's the maximum you can have. So I've had to really try and cut down as much as I could. So that also means that the logic is not completely ideal, but it's the best that I can do with what I've got. And it would have been much more complicated if I tried to split that logic into 2, and I just couldn't be bothered. So it's maxed out. The others, loads of room. You could do extra stuff with that. So I did put some efficiencies in. For instance, this volume pump here used to be on all the time. Now it turns off when there's nothing in the furnace, just to save on power. Yeah, I think that's it. So down in the description of this video will be a link to all of the code and a link to a diagram of showing how it's all structured. Hopefully it all makes sense. If you've got any questions, queries or quibbles, please do shout. Happy to talk about it, happy to talk people through how things are working. Yeah, happy to take on board suggestions if anyone's got ideas of how this works. But this took me a fair chunk of time to put together, but really happy with it. I can now just come along and select a thing that I want, and even the alloys, and just hit a button and bam, I will get output, which yeah, It's quite fun. Quite enjoying that. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, and shout with questions. Cheers.